In this video, I'm going to show you what's probably the most confusing and tricky part of setting up your own website. And that is after you've purchased the domain and you've selected your hosting service provider and purchased that, is actually getting that domain name via DNS, and I'll sort of explain a little bit about what that is, getting that DNS redirected to your hosting provider such that you can just simply type in the domain name and your domain or your website is now hosted on the internet and available to everyone. And like I said, it's not very hard. I'm going to show you in just a couple minutes exactly step by step how to do this, but it does seem to be the place where most people get lost very early in the process. So let me help you with that. The first step, obviously, and you've probably seen some other videos or material from me about selecting domain names and how to use keywords in that process to select a strong domain to get your website started. I suggest a reputable and popular registrar, something like a GoDaddy, somebody that you know that's going to be around for a long time. Go ahead and you would purchase your domain name. You can search in here and then ultimately buy it. The second piece that you're going to need is your hosting provider. So this is the provider that gives you the actual physical servers that are hosted on the internet such that people can get to that domain out there on the internet in a public way. And I suggest, again, and this is just me, there's several others. You can Google all these things and find several different providers, but I use HostGator for most of my implementations. They're just relatively reasonable. You can see they start at $4.95. Been around for a long time. Great reliability, great customer service, and they give you a lot of flexibility. They give you a very intuitive dashboard, something called cPanel. Makes a lot of your typical hosting administration task fairly simple. And I'm going to show you later in a subsequent video when we get to setting up WordPress. They make a lot of things just literally push button to implement. So once we have our domain name from something like GoDaddy and we purchased our hosting, now we've got to go through this tricky process of actually getting the two sort of tied together. So the first place we're going to go is we're going to go into GoDaddy or wherever your registrar is, and there's probably something called a domain manager that'll show your domain. And I'm going to set up DetroitOnlineMarketing.com today. And what you're looking for is this little section called name servers. Now there could be different things in here. It probably won't say this, but there will be two different name server names, and this is literally the little box on the internet that tells people that come looking for your website which direction to go. And so we're going to tell them that the direction they need to go in order to find your domain is at your hosting provider. So you want to click on this Set Name Servers, and it's going to bring up this little box where you can update these with the correct name servers. Now, of course, the next question is, where do I get these numbers? Well, you go over to your hosting service, in this case HostGator, and somewhere, and most of the different hosting providers use this same interface. It's called cPanel or Control Panel, and so you'll probably see something very similar even if you don't use HostGator. And generally you can find this information by scrolling down, and on the left side here the name servers are listed. So I'm going to grab this, just simply copy and paste, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to put the first one in. And then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to grab the second one. Usually they're sequential, so you can probably remember them. But I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste, make sure I don't make any mistakes here. And then that's all you do. You just hit OK here. Okay, so this is going to take a few minutes, and then it's going to update this information. We'll come back and check on it in a second. So now that you've done that, the next thing you need to go is, again, back to your hosting provider. And now I'm actually going to set up the domain, or in this case, add on the domain to my hosting. So you click that little button, and you have to be very careful here to make sure that you spell everything correctly, because that will make a difference. DetroitOnlineMarketing.com. Okay, I've done that. And then once you enter that, it's going to make suggestions for all this. I generally leave it all the same. Of course, I'm going to make a unique password for this domain. Put that in there twice. And what you're doing here is you're literally setting up that domain, per se, on the host. And then you just simply add the domain. take a couple seconds. It's going to set up all the base files that it needs and that sort of thing. And so we've successfully added domain. Okay, so you can see it's down here. It's on the domain, and that's the directory that it's put in. It's all set up. The other thing that I do, and this is totally up to you, but I think it's helpful, is I also set up an email account for each domain. I think this helps. Sort of, number one, it gives you an email that's relative to this particular domain, so people finding you can use that, and it also allows you to segment off your email traffic and all. If you're like me, you probably have a lot of emails. This is a good way to segment that, so you know which particular website it's coming from. Go ahead and create that account. Now, chances are, and it may be, if you're setting this up for a small business, this may be your main email, and you can set this up subsequently to use it. But what I generally do is I go back and I actually forward that email to somewhere else where I'm constantly checking every day, so I don't miss anybody trying to get a hold of me from that particular email. So I'm going to go ahead and forward the email that I just set up. I'm also going to use this in my WordPress implementation, and I'm going to forward it to something that I look at every day, the Kaleido email, and I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Okay, so now I have my domain set up, and I have an email account associated with that, so anybody on that particular, coming to that website that wants to talk to me, I can see it, and I can make sure that I don't miss any of those emails. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to refresh this and make sure that these name servers have updated. Okay, name servers have updated. Now sometimes this takes a little while, but we're going to check to see if it's out there on the internet. Detroit Online Marketing.com. Okay, there you go. This is what you're going to see. So we don't have any website or anything set up at this point. So this is all we're going to see. So we've done successfully this step in the process. So we've gotten our domain, we've gotten our hosting provider, we've taken the name servers from the hosting provider, and we've updated our registrar, or in this case GoDaddy, with those new name servers. And we went back to our hosting provider, and we set up that particular domain on the hosting provider so that it added all the appropriate files, which is essentially this information that you're seeing on this page. And so we have a website literally on the internet. Now, to make it all pretty and make it look like a standard website, we're going to do that in the next video. But this, again, most confusing part of the whole process of setting up your website. Hopefully this has helped, and we'll see you in the next videos, and we'll make this a lot more attractive.